Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. I'm your host, Tim Crouch, and today we're talking with Donald Morris and Terrie Austin, who are members of the Central Ohio Academy of Collaborative Professionals. They are both financial professionals in the collaborative divorce process. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Pat.
So let's begin with a question. You all are financial professionals, divorce financial professionals. How in the world did you end up in the divorce world? Terrie, if you want to go first.
Sure. Thanks for having us again. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been a financial advisor, certified financial planner for almost 30 years now, which is getting scary to say. But about 7 years ago, I realized that I just had 3 or 4 different female clients come to me after a divorce who had some money, and they said, "This is what I have. I've never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing." And I would look at their divorce decree to make sure I knew the kind of assets that we were expecting. And I started questioning, well, things like, if he got all the pension, what did you get in return? And things like that. And I thought, this seems like the fairest settlement. And then, I felt like after seeing 3 or 4 women come to me this way, I thought I'd really like to get in front of this process and talk to these women before they get divorced. And so just as a matter of trying to figure out what kind of designations there were out there, I found the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst designation. And through obtaining that, I started figuring out, now how am I going to put this in the action? And I found the Collaborative Divorce Group here in Columbus. And so I became a part of that as a financial neutral. And I do a little bit of mediation on the side with couples who don't need or want to go through the full collaborative divorce process. But and I also advocate for people who are in awful, much more litigated divorce situations. So it was just seeing a need for it in my work as a financial advisor and deciding that there was definitely a better way to get divorced and wanting to be involved in that and helping bring awareness to it.
Donald, how about you? How did you end up in the divorce world?
My story is not that different. Had been a financial advisor for a lot of years and witnessed a couple clients. One a much older client, but it was the younger client that got me thinking about, I really don't have the bones to help these people, the background, and started looking into the designation and the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. And what was really the tipping point was the younger couple who really didn't have a lot of assets to their name. It was a messy divorce, and the cost was about $20,000 each. And I thought at the time, there's no way they should be getting charged $40,000 for the two of them, which should have been a fairly simple. Now, no divorce is simple, but a fairly simple divorce, because there really weren't that many assets to divide up. So that's what kind of launched me into it. And I happened to have a client who had been divorced 3 times. And so I went to him and said, how do I proceed? He goes, well, you don't want to go the litigated or the contested divorce. That'll tear you up. He said, you want to go collaborative. So I looked into the organization, and yes, in Columbus here, we've got a strong collaborative divorce group, and became the president, unintentionally became the president, as those things often go, and just handed off that tenure to Terrie. So Terrie is the current president of the Central Ohio Academy of Collaborative Divorce Professionals.
So, Donald, if you would, why does the collaborative process work better than the litigated process?
Well, I do know a number of family law attorneys, so I'm gonna paint with a very broad brush, and I don't want to disparage the group because they do a lot of really good work. But what I've found is the collaborative process the two attorneys, instead of working against each other, are really, like the name says, working together and collaborating to get this couple to the best resolution that they can come up with. There's a financial neutral involved, which helps with all the numbers, the black and white picture. There's a family life coach that's involved when tempers flare, and even in the best of divorces, there's a lot of emotion. So as a team, I found that the collaborative team moves that couple forward in a really difficult period of time. When many times one knows I'm absolutely getting a divorce, and the other one is I don't want the divorce, and what happens next, and what will my life look like? And the team will walk them through this, and it's just been effective.
Terrie, I guess one of the biggest issues in any divorce is that fear of what will my life look like after this divorce is over. And sometimes when you can resolve the money issues, I would guess everything else starts to fall in place.
Yes. And I would agree that you don't really get that forward looking aspect when you're going through a divorce with just two opposing attorneys, because they're just worried about how you're dividing what you have right now. And they don't really have the expertise to talk to you about what your life will look like. Yes, this might be what you're going to get, but what does that mean for your financial future? What does that mean for your retirement? Are you and the kids going to be able to afford the house? For example, I was upset and saddened that I wasn't brought in on this case sooner, but a client reached out to me not very long ago, and she said, your name came up as a referral from someone I know who just got divorced, and you were highly recommended, but I'm already working with an attorney. And she started telling me this whole situation. And she said, we're supposed to sell the house, and then I'm going to have to rent. And I started looking at her numbers, and I said, why are you selling the house? And she said, because I can't afford it. And I said, who told you you can't afford it? And she said, well, I just figured I couldn't. And I said, well, I think it's your best bet to keep this house, because when we crunched the numbers and realized there was only $75,000 left on the mortgage, refinancing that mortgage of $75,000 is going to be way less expensive for her than selling the house, taking proceeds, and finding suitable 3-bedroom apartment for her and her 2 children. So I said, can we stop this train of the mandate to sell the house by the end of the month? And so she got me on a call with her attorney, and really my point in telling you this is her attorney said to her in their initial meeting, do you want to keep the house? And she said, no, I don't think I can afford it. And the attorney said, okay. And so they go on to the next one. But the reality is, if they had talked to a financial expert first, then they might have been able to save this. In the end, she just told me the other day, the judge isn't lifting the ruling. He says they have to sell the house anyway, because they just feel like, too, that they can't do it. So that's just building on what Don said, the reasons why collaborative. And that's one of the things, is because we take this a step further and we help you understand what your life is going to look like going forward. And you're not just being thrown to the wolves and here's half and good luck.
And the way I sort of understand this process in that the couple is making the decisions together in the collaborative process. And some of that begins to be those projections of different models of what your financial life will look like when the divorce is over. Am I accurate in that part of it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's the whole thing, is when there is a financial expert involved, you can get creative, because we're sitting and thinking about creative solutions to financial situations all the time with our wealth management clients, or if we're CPAs and we're figuring out creative tax solutions, our minds just sort of work that way. So, being able to help them and tell them this is going to work, or this isn't going to work, or this would be a really good option for you to consider because of XYZ. So it's just, it makes more sense when there's a financial person involved.
So Don, what does it mean to be neutral? How are you neutral, and how do you balance that in a collaborative case?
It's a great question. Financial neutral in the context of the collaborative process, once the attorneys are engaged, they will then fill out the rest of the team with a financial person and the therapist. And the financial person is brought into the team as just that, to be a neutral. So they're not leaning toward one side or the other. They are gathering all the numbers. They're looking at the assets, the liabilities, marital assets, non-marital assets. They're looking at pensions, 401ks, any property. And they're coming in and they're saying, here is the black and white picture. These are the numbers. How would we like to proceed? And the attorneys then work with their clients. And as it evolves, the case, they then are going to come back to the financial and say, we're looking at this. What do you think? And financial might say, like Terrie just mentioned, yeah, this is completely doable. Or have you thought of this option? Or as you mentioned earlier, the judge, they might stand in front of the judge and the judge is going to say, split it down the middle and go your way. In the collaborative process, financial neutral, as Terrie just said, gets a little bit more creative. There's a little bit of flexibility there. So there might be, and I hate to use this phrase, but there might be some horse trading about, you've got the mortgage, you've got a pension, I will give this if you give a little bit here. And I often tell clients early on in the process that if they want to save money in this entire process, is to get their arms around their finances, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and come prepared. And then when you hand that to that financial neutral, who is truly neutral, it's easier for them to say, okay, here's the picture. How would we like to start dividing these assets? Because divorce comes down to, unfortunately, the division of the assets and then the family unit. And I've often said the reason I like collaborative is because it's, in my mind, easier on the pocketbook and saves the family, especially when you've got kids involved.
So this is a legal process. Collaborative is, even though it's out of court. How is the role of an attorney different, Terrie, in the collaborative process versus if they were in the litigated process?
That's it. That's one of the best parts about this, to be honest. The attorneys in collaborative have been collaboratively trained, and I know it's a real mindset shift for them because I was in that 3-day training with several attorneys several years ago, and some of them, voiced out loud that they're really going to have a hard time not fighting for their client. And it's not, they're there as advocates and educators, really. What they are there for is to explain, if this were to go to court, this could be the likely outcome. It could range from this to that. So maybe you guys can find a compromise somewhere in between. And they explain what to expect if we're calculating child support and spousal support. And so, very often they'll ask a question of the financial neutral, and I'll just say, you know what, that has more to do with the law. So I'm going to let the attorneys explain that. So they're working very much collaboratively together, like Don said before. They aren't going at it and advocating and trying to get all they can for each client. They're there to support their client while the clients make the decision of what is best for them.
So this is the Respectful Divorce podcast, and we're doing this ahead of Divorce with Respect Week, which is coming up March 3rd through 9th. For each of you, what does respect in the divorce process mean and look like? Don?
You've got some great questions here. So the respect part of it can kind of be a difficult thing to hold on to when you're facing what could be years of maybe mental or verbal abuse. And And so in this process, we try to, and that's where the therapist can come into play, kind of work with that and each individual and the trauma that they've dealt with, and then move beyond that trauma so that we can move through this process. If divorce, if they've tried therapy as a couple, marriage therapy, and it just didn't work, and divorce is on the table, the last thing you want is to do a scorched earth. And so if one or the couple could, they're not going to love each other through this process, but if they can come to an understanding that this is the new reality in our lives, we may not be best of friends on the back end of this, but at least we can make this a reasonable process to work through. It doesn't have to go, as I mentioned a second ago, scorched earth, especially when they're young kids. And the kids know. The parents might think they're hiding it. The kids know. So the respect part of that is all about how can we move through this process without destroying the family unit.
Yeah. Terrie, what does respect look like to you?
I think this process fosters respect in the whole situation, because I know sometimes people come in and they've got it in their minds what divorce is going to be like, but then they're there with the mental health professional and then financial neutral and the two attorneys who are cooperating and collaborating, and they realize, oh, this doesn't have to be ugly. And we set the stage for them that we're all working together here. And it's so refreshing to be in a collaborative situation. And sometimes when we do a professional team debrief after the couple leaves from a 2.5 hour meeting, we say to ourselves, wow, they're really nice to each other. It's kind of strange that they're actually getting divorced. So I think this process fosters that kind of respect, and it helps them understand. And I think it really lays a groundwork for them going forward in co-parenting or being ex-spouses and whatever the life is going to be like afterwards.
Yeah, but this is not a kumbaya divorce. This is hard work, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's hard work. It's hard work for all the parties, but it does go faster than traditional litigated divorce because you're not waiting on specific court dates or attorneys to, for you to come up in their tickler or whatever. We schedule meetings with you while we're all there in the room, and we get them on the calendar. And, but yes, there is a lot of work that goes into it. There's no less work, but it's a lot less of an adversarial situation. And there is a lot more respect.
Yeah. And there are tears, right, Don?
I've been to very few that there aren't tears. Absolutely. This is not, as you said, it's not a kumbaya. Even the best of divorces have emotion and high emotion sometimes. But compared to the litigated side, this is a best alternative.
Yeah. Terrie, as president of the Central Ohio Academy of Collaborative Professionals, can you tell us what that organization is and what you do as a group?
So that's a mouthful. The Central Ohio Academy for Collaborative Divorce Professionals. We know it as COA CDP, but our website is actually winwindivorce.org because hopefully both sides win in this situation. So we try to simplify that a little bit because that name is a mouthful, but we are a group of all collaboratively trained, which is 3 to 4 days of extensive training, to kind of get us all in the mindset of helping couples make decisions and be in this respectful process rather than going a different route. And we have attorneys who are in the group. We have the financial neutrals. We have the mental health professionals who are licensed counselors and excellent resources. And I love having them involved. And then we also have some associate members, such as mortgage specialists who get really creative in helping divorced couples or divorced individuals get their new mortgages or whatever they have to do in that regard. We have some real estate professionals who are associate members of our group who like to be involved and offer their services as well. So We're just here to help people get divorced in a better way.
And people can find those collaboratively trained professionals on the website so that they know that these are people who are committed to the collaborative process, right?
Absolutely. At winwindivorce.org here in Columbus.
All right. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with either of you, what's the best way to reach you, Don?
They could go to the website, and under the Meet Our Professionals, there's going to be the attorneys, the financial neutrals, and the therapists, the family coaches. You can go there, click on my image and my information. But if they want to reach out to me directly, they could call 614-339-1000. Now, I'm a financial advisor with Raymond James, so that's who will answer. But if they want to call me and ask further and get in further information on the collaborative process, 614-339-1000.
All right. Terrie, what's the best way to get with you?
Well, I'm on the website as well at winwindivorce.org with Dawn under the financial neutral section. And my company, Modern Divorce Solutions, is on the internet as well, moderndivorcesolutions.com. My phone number is 614-427-1222.
So we will put those links and phone numbers into the show notes, along with a link to the Win-Win site and a link to the upcoming Divorce with Respect Week site, divorcewithrespectweek.com. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Still.
This important programming note, Divorce with Respect Week is March 3rd through 9th. During Divorce with Respect Week, you can talk with lawyers, divorce coaches, and divorce financial experts for free. To learn more about the divorce process and your options, simply go to divorcewithrespectweek.com to find professionals near you. That's divorcewithrespectweek.com. I'm Tim Crouch, reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.